Okay, here we have a short test of the audio system because the audio also had a coffee break, but that may be a bit too loud, but in principle that looks all right. Okay, Sophie, you are the only one joining us with a Zoom conference right now. We have delayed the start to about now, so I hope that all the participants will join us here in a couple of seconds. So stay tuned. There will be something in short.
Hello, welcome. Maybe I use this one for the microphone. Yeah, so welcome to the discussion panel, We Are Ocean. Um, well, my name is Henrike Welpinghus. I am part of the Klimahaus team organizing this conference, and I have the honor to introduce the moderator and creator of this discussion, Annemarie Melzer. As an international curator and art critic, Annemarie Melzer is the co-director and executive director of Artport Making Waves. In 2006, Artport Making Waves started as a curatorial collective in New York and Valencia at the intersection of art, climate change, and sustainability. Since then, the international collective grew, and it got more to an accelerator for using multiple perspectives from science, art, politics, civil society to go from just raising awareness to find solutions. So in this context, Annemarie Melzer collaborated with internationally renowned artists like Olafur Eliasson and institutions like the United Nations. And she created art programs for various climate conferences, including COP23 in Bonn in 2017. Her pioneering work at the interface of art and climate change has made her also a guest lecturer at international universities, like the Academy of Fine Arts at the University of Valencia or at the University of San Jose in Costa Rica. She created also We Are Ocean in 2019, which after Berlin, Brandenburg, and Marseille will have further stops in Vancouver, Venice, and Mumbai in 2020, before it will, starting from 2021, accompany the UN Ocean Decade to other stops worldwide. We hope it will also work with the pandemic. So we are very excited to have you also here in Bremerhaven, right at the ocean, basically, and to have the panelists here and your format. Yeah, so the stage is yours. Dear audience, please welcome Annemarie Melzer and her panelists.
Yeah, I hope I'm not going to fall over the cables because I have a talent for this. Thank you very much for this nice introduction. And hello, good afternoon to everybody. Thank you for coming, for joining us here. It's slightly a little bit different format, as you can see. I hope you will like that. It's not going to be the typical panel discussion, which you might have expected, but I tried to curate something, which means like it's a more participatory format. We will start with the introduction. I'm going to talk a little bit about the project We Are Ocean. You know a little bit more about Artport now. And then I'm going to introduce you to the film, which we created in the framework of the project last year in Berlin-Brandenburg. Then I'm going to introduce you to the panelists. So I will not speak about my panelists now, but later, and I'm going to introduce them then with their personal biography and to ask them some questions, which they are going to answer. But then, which is very important, because we want to have a little bit of an open format, we want you to integrate and not only to give statements and questions at the end, but really be part of this so-called fishbowl discussion. So after each question and answer of each of my panelists, one of you is invited to sit on this chair there and to ask something, because I know how it is. Usually you have an idea during the panel already, during somebody speaks, you have an idea, a question, a doubt, a critic, and you want to say something, and then you wait 30 minutes, 50 minutes, and then at the end, it's not up to date anymore and you don't open your mouth anymore. So we invite you to really become part of this panel, because I think it's interesting. We have 4 different stories here, and I'm sure that you're going to have questions. And well, then after this, we are going to have like a little closing meditation, because we feel that it's always important to listen to panels, to watch films, which open our sensibility or sensitivity towards a certain subject. But it's also important to breathe. Specifically right now with our masks on our mouths, we can barely breathe sometimes. And I don't want to politicize this topic, but it's really, for us, it's important to come down sometimes, to put our feet on the ground. Like I like what Thomas did in the morning. we were exchanging, we were getting to know each other, but then we were invited to walk around the room and think about what our questions are, what our concerns are, what our problems are in our work, what we are doing. And I think that's important as well. We need space to breathe and space to think every once in a while. And I invited my panelists today. I'm really happy that all of them accepted my invitation, because all of you come from different backgrounds and from different cities, and you have different expertise. You even come from different generations and, of course, different genders, which is important. I always want to have 50-50 on board. And I'm sure that you're all going to be inspired by what they are doing and how they are doing it in order to promote sustainable development and the protection of the ocean specifically, well, in all our different departments. And after the meditation, I have 2 announcements to make, but I'm going to keep your curiosity a little bit under tension, and we will discuss that later then. So just to give you some brief words about the project We Are Ocean, I started to work on that exactly 2 years ago. After, well, almost at that time, it was 13, 14 years of working with Artport. The biggest challenge was always how to find the money for our project. Since we don't have a sponsor who feeds us every year with a big amount of money, I said we have to get together a big group of collaborators, of organizations who are all interested in this topic. And I always wanted to work on the ocean, because for me, the ocean, the sea, is something like a key for happiness for me. I grew up very close by here, in between Cuxhaven and Bremerhaven. So to be in Bremerhaven today is for me like coming back home after, I don't know, 30 years. I even brought my father with me. And it's nice. It's like a circle is closing. And so I grew up here. Then I lived for a long time in Valencia, close to the Mediterranean. And the ocean for me was always like a source of energy and a source of happiness. And I always said, I have to work on this topic of ocean. I want to, because we always worked with a lot of young people. And we have to bring this topic, ocean protection, to younger people, to kids, but also teenagers. And that's very difficult. I started to speak with the IISS Potsdam because of Thomas Brun. Thomas Brun is part of our advisory board, and so he opened doors also for us, which is important. You always need people who are like-minded people and who support your cause, your topic. And this is why it's important that we are gathering here as well, because we feel that there are many people who are working on the same thing, and we don't feel alone anymore. So that's how I started We Are Ocean. And then after IISS, I asked the Alfred Wegener Institute, the Future Ocean in Kiel, Jens Amsdorf with the Lighthouse Foundation in Kiel as well, and many others. If you look on our website and you see the amount of collaborators and partner organizations which we gathered, I think it's crazy. I think we have like 20 or 25, and they are growing each year with each stop. But it's lovely to see how so many different expertise are coming together, so many different ideas and also engagements. And so in January last year, February, March, we had everything together, the partners. We asked the artists in Berlin, because the project was planned from the beginning as a traveling project. We started in Berlin and Brandenburg last year in August. And this year it moved with a lot of changes due to COVID to Marseille. The next ones, you were mentioning the next stops in Vancouver, in Mumbai, and in Venice. Vancouver and Mumbai obviously are happening virtually. We are always working with local partners, local artists, local schools, so it's not necessary for us to travel everywhere, just in case you're going to ask the question of sustainability if we do international projects like this. We are not a missionary institution, so we don't go to places and tell people how to do, what to do, but we always work with local experts and local people. They bring the topic to us, they tell us what they want to work on, and we give them a stage and we give them a framework. So yes, we started last year, Berlin, Brandenburg. It was fantastic to work with kids from, now I forgot the English word again, the Gesamtschule, integrated something school. Nobody knows this word, and I try to learn it by heart. I always forget it. So Gesamtschule means that it's a school which is not a lycée, it's not a high school. A lot of young people who come from difficult backgrounds go to these schools, and this is for us important. We don't want to work with kids who are already very much into the topic, who are already educated in sustainable development and climate change, in ocean protection, for example, but we wanted to give a platform for kids who usually don't have the privilege to work in this kind of international project. Because one thing which I forgot to mention is we got on board of the preparatory phase to the UN Ocean Decade for Sustainable Development, which means we have the official support of UNESCO, the official logo, so it's an official UNESCO project, which makes us proud as well, because like this we can spread the word through UNESCO and for UNESCO. And for the kids, it's important as well. They feel like empowered. We were talking about empowerment, specifically youth empowerment in the morning. And we see that, that there is a pragmatic effect of our project. So we see the kids are learning something. They are amazed. They come into the workshop and they say, I don't know nothing. I'm stupid. My father always tells me that I'm stupid. And you hear this and you are shocked. Julia, I will talk a little bit more about her role as co-curator of We Are Ocean, sometimes said as well, wow, this is incredible. But then after a week of workshops with Lisa Rabe, the German artist, and one scientist of IISS Potsdam, Oskar Schmidt, the kids, they opened up. They showed us their creativity. They were imagining things. They were even imagining their future profession. It was, for us, really surprising. So we saw an immediate effect. And in Marseille as well, in September, we were working with small school children, like in the elementary school. And after this week of workshops, they told us, are you coming back next week? They were always almost crying that we wouldn't come back. But next year you come back. It was, for me, the most wonderful week ever in school. I enjoyed it so much. So right now they wrote like poems and they wrote like little stories to tell us how wonderful it was for them, because they could work in a totally different way. They were drawing sea creatures. They were transforming into sea creatures. And that's when you see that kids, even though they are living on the coastline of the Mediterranean Sea, they are living with that on a daily basis. They didn't know so many things. And suddenly they opened up and they had ideas for solutions. So we always think only we adults know ways for a solution, but actually the little ones, they are much more creative and they have this, well, this virginity still of ideas. They are not blocked by intellectual capacity. And so this effect of the project where we are combining art, science, and education shows us that there is something that we can move. Even though it's on a little and small scale, we can move something. And but we don't only work with artists and curators and scientists and kids and educators, but also with policymakers, which is important. I don't know if, oh yeah, the slide is working now. It's only, the slide is showing some of the images of Berlin and of Marseille, which we gathered. So just as a little visualization in the background. But we also try to include policymakers. So we work with international policymakers who give their input and who support us as well. Like we try to do our lobbyism on a small scale. Also with German policymakers and specific councils whom we want to push as well into a specific direction. And big foundations, arts foundations, for example, TBA 21 Academy, who just opened the Ocean Space in Venice last year, who are big promoters of ocean protection. So for us, this interdisciplinary is really important, and We Are Ocean is like maybe the best symbol, the best metaphor for this interdisciplinarity. And yeah, to empower young people and to include them in something, to give them a voice, to give them a space, to open up and to speak. And I think we always work with artists who are already internationally renowned in a specific way, who work also in a scientific way, so that there is a communication between artists and scientists as well, gives the artist as well a new format and a new way of working. And everybody learns. The artist learns, the scientist learns, the kids are learning, obviously. Me, I'm always learning. So this is just to give a little overview. I don't want to bore you with too many words. Now I'm going to show you a video. And this is the video which Lisa Rave, the German artist whom we commissioned, I'm sorry, I'm always turning my back on you, whom we commissioned in Berlin and Brandenburg to hold the workshops and to create the film afterwards. It's called We Are Ocean, and then a very long name, in collaboration with school kids from different schools in Berlin and Brandenburg. We worked there with the Gesamtschule Niederbarnim in Brandenburg. That's where Julia held the workshop together with Oskar Schmidt. Then we worked with the Barbara Zürner Oberschule in Velten, which is in Brandenburg as well, and with the Schule am Berlinecker Platz in Berlin, Tempelhof. And she created, together with the kids or the teenagers, this film. And I'm asking for your patience. The film is 25 minutes long, but I think you have to watch it until the end in order to show the impact of the project to the kids. Then we continue with our panel discussion, our fishbowl discussion, and so on, as I said before. So enjoy the film. Maybe we can close the curtains, that we have enough darkness, if that's possible, technically. And we see each other later. Thank you.
Ich bin Tasnim und das ist Mia. Wir wollen heute über die Verschmutzung vom Ozean reden und wie viel Schmutz halt drin ist und warum so viel Plastik und Müll halt im Ozean ist. Ich mache das gerade jetzt auch. Aber eine Frage, ich kann improvisieren. Okay, einfach nochmal. Okay, nochmal. Guten Tag, ich bin Tasnim und das ist Mia. Wir wollen heute über die Verschmutzung vom Ozean reden, warum so viel Plastik und Müll im Ozean ist und wir Menschen sind halt schuld und Mia kann uns halt Beispiele geben, wie wir das ändern können. Einfach ein bisschen manchmal niedriger, dass wir ein bisschen geschockt sind.
Ich sage mal, dann bitte.
Wie viel Plastikmüll schätzt ihr ist in den Meeren?
Ich würde sagen 50 Tonnen.
Der Ozean ist sauber.
Ich würde sagen 47 Millionen. Alles ist perfekt. Ich glaube, es ist 600 Tonnen. Ich glaube schon ungefähr. Der Klimawandel ist eine Lüge. 500 Tonnen.
Ich schätze.
Alles ist perfekt.
Also die richtige Antwort ist 150 bis 200 Millionen Tonnen, also eine ganz, ganz große Menge.
anfangen, Plastik zu sparen. Werden die Menschen aussterben, wenn wir so weitermachen?
Warum sehen wir Menschen unser Leben wertvoller als das von Tieren?
Und was könnten wir tun, damit die Welt nicht weiter zerfällt? Was passiert mit den Fischen?
Also ich bin Tolgan, ich bin 15 Jahre alt und wir reden jetzt heute über die Ozeanprojekt. Das ist Mert, 16 Jahre alt und das ist Bernhard, 16 Jahre alt. Und wir reden heute darüber, was die Politiker daran ändern können, dass der Ozean so krass verschmutzt ist. Ja. Und was wir dabei ändern können, dass wir die Politiker dazu bringen, dass sie den Ozean besser beschützen können. Zum Beispiel vor Tauchern, also die dort Dreck machen, die dort die Meeresgesteine da rausholen, einfach den Meer nicht mehr stützen.
Der Mensch ist halt ein Gewöhnungstier und es ist schwer, sich einfach umzugewöhnen. Also von heute auf morgen auf einmal anstatt Plastik Glas oder irgendwie irgendwas Wiederverwertbares zu benutzen.
Und wegen uns sterben auch die Meeresgetiere im Meer, zum Beispiel Fische, zum Beispiel wenn man McDonalds geht, da diese Getränke halt, dann kann man einfach merken, kann da sich Fische drin verhängen, zum Beispiel in Drähten und so dies, das, noch nicht sterben die da rein.
Ich glaube, wir machen alle jeden Tag irgendwas, was nicht gut für die Umwelt ist. Und meiner Meinung nach kann man auch nicht alles vermeiden. Und deswegen fühle ich mich einerseits schuldig, aber einerseits auch nicht, weil wenn man versucht darauf zu achten, dass man wenigstens versucht.
Also ich denke, man muss eine Nachricht abgeben, alle Politiker zusammenstellen und eine Nachricht abgeben, dann sind auch alle Länder damit informiert, dass die Umwelt richtig verschmutzt ist und dann man den Dreck von dem Meer alles wegräumen kann.
Warum wird viel mehr geredet als unternommen? Warum ändert sich nichts?
Wie viel Plastikmüll frisst ein Pottwal?
3 Millionen. 3.
Der Ozean ist sauber. Ich sag auch so vielleicht so. Alles ist perfekt. 1000 Tonnen.
Ich würde sagen 5000. Ja.
Der Klimawandel ist eine Lüge.
4700 Kilogramm oder so?
Alles ist perfekt.
Also im März 2013 gab es an der spanischen Küste einen Pottwal, der gestrandet ist. Und er hatte 17 Kilogramm Plastikfolie in seinem Magen und ist daran gestorben.
Der Klimawandel ist eine Lüge.
Wie würdest du reagieren, wenn man zu dir sagt, du bist total bequemlichkeitsverblödet?
Glauben Sie, wir kriegen wieder alles in den Griff?
Wann haben Sie die Situation mit der Umweltverschmutzung als kritisch angesehen?
Wie wäre es, wenn mehr Gesetze zur Umwelt... Richtig. Glauben Sie, wir kriegen wieder alles in den Griff? Hack!
Wird ja erst auf den Server gepackt, also insgesamt glaube ich auf 3 verschiedene Server. Auf seinem Handy-Server, der hat nochmal externe, dann da wo WhatsApp der große Stand ist, das ist Hauptquartier, sag ich nur so, ich habe mir gerade das angehört. Dort ist nochmal ein Server und bei demjenigen, wo es ankommen soll, ist der dritte Server. So, und bei jedem Server produziert es einfach CO2.
Und noch dazu die Kühlung, die ganze Kühlung, die der Rechner und Server braucht. Oder alleine ein E-Mail-Speicher. Wo hat man schon mal ein Experiment gemacht und 1500 Leute haben mitgemacht, haben alle gleichzeitig ihre E-Mails gelöscht. Und es hat so viel gebracht, dass wir 15 Leute ein ganzes Jahr lang ihr komplettes CO2-Ausschuss verringern, also komplett zunichte gehen kann. Also das bedeutet, wenn man jetzt alle E-Mails löschen würde, auf der gesamten Welt, dann hätten wir so und so viel wieder reingeholt an CO2-Emissionen. Was ist, wenn die Welt uns wie Fieber abtöten möchte? Warum bringen wir uns Menschen nicht einfach um?
Könnten wir ohne das Meer überleben?
Also ich finde schon, dass es eine gute Überlegung ist, so sich vorzustellen, wie die Menschheit dran wäre ohne uns Menschen so, aber im Endeffekt sind wir auch nur ein Lebewesen wie jedes andere. Wir haben uns nicht ausgesucht, dass wir hier auf dieser Erde leben und dass die Erde auch ein Haltbarkeitsdatum in dem Sinne hat.
Ich weiß nicht, ich habe halt eine Idee, aber es ist keine klare Meinung. Es gibt den Film, der heißt Avenger Endgame und da hat ein Charakter, der ist Thanos, hat so einen Handschuh gehabt und wenn er schnitzt, dann wird sozusagen die Hälfte der Bevölkerung ausgelöscht. Und es werden dann wären, glaube ich, bei uns noch knapp 4 Milliarden da. Und es ist zwar schwer zu sagen, wer gehen soll und wer bleiben soll, das kann man halt einfach nicht bestimmen. Aber es wäre halt eine gute Idee, das zu machen, weil dann wäre alles eigentlich wieder, dann müsste man nicht so viel Essen produzieren für 8 Milliarden Menschen zum Beispiel jetzt.
Wenn wir so weitermachen wie die Jahre davor, die Erde wird immer weiter kaputt gehen, immer mehr schauen. Was wird dann später passieren?
Also, ich bin der Meinung, wenn wir das jetzt machen würden, dann wären wir doch alle Mörder im Prinzip, also die Überlebenden.
Warum denn? Warum wird es ausgerüstet?
Das Problem ist halt, wenn man jetzt auslosen würde und jetzt auf einmal wirklich alle, also jetzt der Großteil davon Kinder oder Jugendliche wären, dann würde halt auch auf lange Sicht weniger Leute, also würden weniger Nachkommen kommen.
Wenn plötzlich einfach die Hälfte der Bevölkerung verschwindet. Von uns 4 jetzt, zum Beispiel Marc und Leo, ist schon erstmal ein Schock. Erstmal würde alles zusammenbrechen, Infrastruktur, alles.
Klar, wenn jetzt auf einmal alle Polizisten ausgelöscht werden, durch Zufall, weil alle Polizisten gelost werden, dann hätten wir keine Recht und Ordnung mehr. Oder genauso, wenn jetzt auf einmal Hälfte aller Ärzte weg wären, dann wären die Krankenhäuser unterbesetzt und es werden immer noch mehr Leute sterben.
Ja, genau. Ich finde es ja schon sinnlos, den Gedanken überhaupt zu fassen, dass alle Ärzte oder alle Polizisten...
Es kann sein, es ist eine sehr geringe Wahrscheinlichkeit. Aber dass es nur so 50 Polizisten in Deutschland nur noch gibt.
Könnte sein. Könnte aber auch sein, dass dass alle Polizisten noch leben und auf einmal alle Banker irgendwie, oder nur noch 5 Banker würden dann da sein.
Deswegen, es würde so einfach komplettes Chaos herrschen.
Dankeschön.
Deutschland sehen wir weit über 50 Grad. Und das in einem normalen Zeitraum, wo wir vor 50 Jahren sogar -10 Grad hätten und meterhohe Schneedecken.
In der nächsten Woche haben wir dann nicht mehr Nord- und Ostsee, wir haben dann noch Nordsee, können wir sagen. Da die starken Überschwemmungen in der nächsten Zeit relativ viel von Dänemark eingenommen haben und die meisten Küstengebiete total überschwemmt worden sind.
Wir sehen, durch diese Hochwasserkatastrophe und diesen Tsunami wird das größtenteils von Festland, von Europa, komplett von Wassermassen überschwemmt. Das natürlich eine weitere Spätfolge von den Schmelzen der Eisberge in der Antarktis. Das war das Wetter zum heutigen Tagesschau.
Können wir den Klimawandel stoppen? Geht um eure Zukunft. Habt ihr Vorschläge? Ihr wollt sicherlich eine tolle Zukunft haben. Habt ihr mal Vorschläge? Du, wie kann man Klimawandel stoppen? Schön. Weitere Vorschläge?
Ohne Geld, würde ich denken, hätten wir wieder Kannibalismus und würden viele Räume durchführen oder so. Ja. Wir würden wieder Krieg führen mit anderen Handelsstädten.
Hätten wir kein Geld mehr, dann würden die Ärzte nicht mehr arbeiten, weil sie ja dann dafür auch nichts kriegen würden. Ich glaube, die Ärzte würden dann auch nur, wenn zum Beispiel jemand irgendeine Krankheit hat oder generell krank ist, würden sie sich ja auch nur um die Leute kümmern, die den Ärzten auch dafür wirklich was bieten können. Weil
was bräuchte denn ein Arzt, was ich ihm geben könnte, damit er mich behandelt?
Und es ist ja auch noch so, dass ein Arzt ja auch Medikamente braucht, die er von Pharmafirmen bekommt.
Ja, das ist
Was sind Pharmafirmen da wieder?
Das ist wieder tauscht. Sozusagen die Pharmafirmen bekommen dann eine Erste-Hilfe-Kasten umgesponnen.
Du kannst es nicht so machen, das funktioniert leider in unserer heutigen Gesellschaft meiner Meinung nach nicht. Es würde totales Chaos herrschen. Aber ein Kommunismus, also das alles allen gehört, da würde es dann wieder funktionieren.
Ja, aber was wäre das denn eigentlich? Das wäre doch eigentlich vorteilhaft, wenn, sag ich mal, alles gehört jedem. Was würde sein, wenn der Kapitalismus und die Demokratie zusammenarbeiten würden? Dass es beides ist, sag ich mal, dass es in manchen Sachen Demokratie ist und dann mal wieder Kapitalismus, so in anderen Sachen.
Ich denke, wenn wir Kapitalismus hätten und alles, wirklich alles, die Meere, die Wälder, die Flüsse, uns allen gehören würde, und jetzt nicht
Kommunismus. Der Kapitalismus ist alles meins, der Kommunismus ist alles unseres.
Okay, dann war ich falsch.
Wir müssen so viel in die Technik einbauen, dass jeder Baum wie Vieh-Signal abgibt, und damit wir so viele Bäume pflanzen, damit wir unsere Welt retten. Glaub mir. Weil jeder Internet irgendwo hat, selbst im Wald. Das wäre geil.
Sometimes that's an obstacle. Oops. I hope this works. You tell me if it works. Yeah, it's okay. Thank you very much for your patience. Regarding the film, 2 more words, but I think Julia maybe can add something to that later on. You saw that it was not a documentation of the workshops, but it was really like reflecting on the reactions of the kids and the ideas they had, spontaneous ideas, something like sometimes really absurd ideas, as you saw. And she used different techniques, the blue screen, and she was always using images she had already recorded before during a trip she did with TBA 21 to Academy to the Pacific Ocean. So that was a special technical approach to a film in the framework of a workshop like this. And after the workshops and the film production, we also showed interventions with the children in specific venues in Berlin, where they were interacting with scientists or interacting with the audience at the Marine Regions Forum, then at the Futurium in Berlin. So they were also giving not only a voice in the school, but also in public space, which was really amazing to see. Then they've never done that before. And suddenly they were talking to German policymakers and to international scientists from, well, they came from all over the world, from Goa and from Japan, etc. So that was good to empower them. And I just hope that they are going to continuously learn. Now I want to switch to the panel. And I'm really happy that, well, as I said before already, I don't want to be redundant, that you all confirmed, that you all accepted the invitation. I will start with Jens Amsdorf. I'm sorry, your biography is impressive, like all of your biographies, so please forgive me if I'm going to read it, because if I don't read, I'm going to miss details. Sorry, now I'm mixing up my papers. Here you are. So you are the founding managing director of the Lighthouse Foundation in Kiel. It was founded in Hamburg, but it's based now in Kiel. And it's a German charity foundation or charitable foundation focusing on the implementation of local sustainable development projects and the role of the marine environment for the future of humanity. You work globally, but always in close collaboration with local partners, and specifically in the so-called Global South. But I think we have to find a new expression in the future because it has become a weird word as well. You have a diploma in biology and you studied freshwater ecology and marine chemistry at the Christian Albrechts University in Kiel. And during this time as a research associate, you were in charge of studies about ecological production, recycling, and regional sustainability strategies. That was already very pioneering at that time, I assume. Following your university attachment, you became responsible for project implementation at the Technologiestiftung Schleswig-Holstein. And during several years, your work focused on the interdependency of regional development and technological trends on the local, regional, and European level. I know it's long, but I think it's important to speak about that because we have been speaking about this in the morning as well. The transition also and the connection between different fields and different levels. In 2000, so already 20 years ago, you celebrated, or you're going to celebrate your 20th anniversary with your foundation this year. You became the founding director of the Lighthouse Foundation, and since its inception, the foundation spent more than 20 million euros in supporting initiatives in more than 40 countries. So I think that's impressive, and on top, you're not making a big show about what you're doing, you're just doing it, and you're really working with people on the ground who are really implementing things which are helping to protect. So, and you also supported We Are Ocean Berlin, and we are very happy about that as one of the partners. Why did you think that this kind of project, I have to speak about that because you will answer maybe something else and something like brighter and broader and wider, but why did you think that this kind of project could enhance sustainable development locally and a project around art, education and science? Because usually you work rather with small-scale entities who are really implementing protection system, as far as I understood that.
Really good question. This works too, I think. I think you've seen the answer, why we support projects like this. And in a wider context, I would say the foundation is always aiming for projects that at least aspire to be transformative. So, so we are normally not supporting, let's say, or well, we do currently, for instance, we support, we switched our whole program in India this year because this year in India we're not talking about sustainable development, we're talking about survival. So there we are now doing actually a food support system for the local population there, because they are starving, because they have no work, no income, nothing. So, but generally speaking, we try to avoid this. So we really focus on local initiatives that want to be better for themselves, better for the future, better for our planet. To do that, and such a project, and when I said, or when you said we are working in close collaboration with our partners, actually we're just helping them a little bit, and they do the work. So, which means that still this was my most relaxed year since 20 years, because normally we, of course, work with them, which means whatever we can, we give, and for that it's important to discuss and meet. So the years before, I normally spent, let's say, three months just traveling around the planet, just talking to our partners and seeing what's the situation there, having a little bit of outside view on what they discuss, but never really advising them to do this or that, because they know better. So, but back to the question of arts and or culture, I would say, and science in our projects. Of course, they are science based. So I think if not, what would be the point? So it always has to be the best knowledge applied, which is not necessarily science in a scientific way, but maybe it's traditional knowledge. So, and the other part of that is, of the answer is, every project is an intervention. And it aims to change a situation that is felt by the people on the ground as not satisfying. But to make an intervention, you have to change a system that is there in place and that is hard to change. So I found that sometimes, not always, so sometimes it works differently, but sometimes it's really good to use uncommon, unusual methods of intervention. And for that, arts project can be very, very helpful. So also I think that what we want also to stimulate or to support is creativity on the ground. So because how can we change a situation that we are not happy with if we are not creative? So again, arts in its broadest sense can be a very good methodology behind this, that to start such a process. I'm not saying that artists always are the best project implementers. So I would rather say that after a while, maybe there are others better than that. So, but to have this initial intervention, which is maybe very disruptive, unexpected, there I feel it's really, really good to come up with something that is still understandable, but not so not so boring as a pure science report.
Yes, thank you. Maybe did you have already other experiences working with art, science, and education in other projects?
Yes, of course. For instance, we supported, and this has paused now, but maybe, well, we see. We've supported a music and land art festival in northern Russia, the Polar Circle, in a small community. The town is called Chupa. It's at the White Sea coast, And we've done this for 7 years. Actually, it's, I think, the biggest alternative festival in Russia, in northern Russia for that time. So with 2,000 people coming to a place which, or where the region only has 7,000 inhabitants. So, and yeah, it works. Actually, it is a super complicated situation there, as you can imagine. It's really Russia. So, and when we started, actually things were much easier. So, but it has attracted people from outside. It has changed the perspective for some people inside the region. It was and is still well recognized, but difficult. So, and actually over the years, we did this. You can't do this in 1 year and then expect that everything has changed. That will never work. So, but over the years, you can see that there is, within this very sparsely populated region, you see that there are other people coming to the region again, or that young people, which is one of the biggest problems there, that all the young people are leaving, so that some are coming back, because they maybe not alone through such a festival, but maybe they are a little bit supported by the idea that there could be something for them. And we've done other things. We supported also a project in the UK, Cape Farewell. That was a project doing basically a combination of arts and science programs in the Arctic. Also, that was more directed towards Svalbard. And one of the outcomes was a curriculum and a course system for I think it was grade 8, something like that, school children in the UK. So very nicely, but the much more important part of that was a follow-up, which was then a little bit of an Scottish expedition on a sailboat around the Scottish Islands with arts and scientists together working there, stopping at different harbors. And from that, there are a number of really interesting, small-scale, really local projects that have sparked off there. So that is really nice. So you hardly can tell before what the results will be, but there are results. So we talked a little bit before that about this. I think one important part of this kind of arts element in our project is that we aim not to overfund them. It's
which is a pity.
Which is a pity. No, it's important, because if it's so much self-standing, that is just an imported thing that happens there and it's fully independent from everything, then the results are much weaker for the locality than if you have a situation where really it needs a preparation and discussion with local people. How can we do this? What's the possibility? So interaction upfront are very important, and for that it's better not to give too much money immediately. I'm not saying that maybe afterwards it's not important to think about the budget again, but I think the creativity also gets inspired by scarcity.
Yeah, I think this is worth another discussion in a different context, but I understand that off the beaten track, to work off the beaten track is really important. We all have to focus also on spots where not a lot of things are happening, because we all tend to work in New York and Berlin, in Madrid and Paris and London, etc. But we forget a lot the periphery, and in the periphery a lot of things are happening and people are really active. I would like to open up to the audience to fill this seat for a question, so please don't be shy. I hope you didn't fall asleep. I hope you are still all there with us. You have a question maybe? Have a seat. The mic comes here.
My name is Martin Seringer. I'm from Berlin. We started the Climate Cultures Network. And my question to you is, are there also writers in your festival there in Chukotka, or where is it?
It's not Chukotka, it's Chupa, but nevertheless. No, not necessarily, but in other projects, it's also writers that contributed. For instance, and I think that is that's a really good point. We are also supporting the Slow Fish program within the Slow Food Network globally, and for many years, there are people there, and there are several hundred people involved. They have really struggled to try to create a manifesto what this is all about. So kind of a declaration what slow fish really is. It never worked out because it is very diverse. Finally, we made a workshop on our little island on the Baltic coast, invited a couple of people there, and also a writer, actually a poet. And he participated for 3 days and then made a poem out of the discussion. Actually, that is much better than any specific manifesto because it really captured what people were talking and thinking about. So, yes, of course, writing is part of it.
To a festival in Berlin, so maybe we come in contact later. Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much. May I ask Mr. Kube to project the first foil, the first image, so that we have something visual in the background? Thank you. Thank you very much. I will turn to Maria Elena Vorrat. She's maybe the youngest in the round, which was important for me as well. You just concluded your PhD, even though you cannot wear the title yet because you're still waiting for the end results or something. And so you recently finished your PhD. I'm going to read that as well because I don't want to miss anything. Your PhD studies as a marine geologist at the Alfred Wegener Institute here in Bremerhaven, just around the corner, to represent also one of our other partner organizations. And you investigate the sea ice of the past in Antarctica based on sea ice algae lipids that are stored in the ocean floor. Such studies improve climate and ice sheet modeling and allow better predictions of the future response of the Antarctic ice sheet to global warming regarding global sea level rise. I think that's really interesting. Before turning your interest to the polar regions, you study the subtropical coast at Namibia, where the interaction of the ocean atmosphere and nutrients sustain a rich marine ecosystem and high fish stocks that are an important economic factor in this region. As a former audio engineer, I find this really interesting because she was an audio engineer before moving to marine science. You were a band member as well with a bachelor degree in musicology. You decided to present your research fields in non-scientific environments, such as science slams. You really have to watch that online, what she does in her science slams. It's really interesting. In music festivals or in podcasts, your aim is to translate scientific terms into understandable language and call on everyone's responsibility to slow down global warming and environmental destruction. And I think this is particularly interesting because you as a scientist, you are not looking for somebody like a vehicle who can transform your scientific language, which usually is not understandable for us normal citizens, to translate it to a broader society. You do it on your own. You say, okay, I'm a scientist, but at the same time, I'm also I come from music. I know how to do this. I know what I'm talking about. So you stand in front of audiences and you do your science slams. Can you explain the response to your cultural engagement? So how does the audience respond to what you're doing outside of your scientific work? And what do your colleagues, for example, say?
environments, yeah, of my science slams and on festivals and where I do my presentations, I have very positive response. Sometimes you meet a climate change denier or something, but I don't, I just, yeah, I have other things to do, like Christian Drosten says. If there is a chance to discuss something like this, I do it, but most of the times it's not. And yeah, the majority responds very positive from people outside of science, because maybe it's the first time they understand what is happening right now. Because I just do not only present my own science, but I also present, or I understand myself as a translator from the IPCC reports towards the average audience, public. And I take the IPCC reports, and if you see the written text, like, yeah, the oceans are warming by 1 degree or something, many people don't know what this really means, and I try to put this into perspective and try to show what consequences this will have, and so make it more yeah, touchable or visible for them to understand what consequences this might have for the global community. And and many people are positive about it, but at the same time they get frustrated and anxious. And but I really hope that this is also a driver for action, because I cannot stand on the stage and say everything will be good, because it will not. And in the science community, my colleagues are also very positive about these performances, but still science communication is a free time activity, so it's a hobby. And especially if you're doing your PhD, you're not working 40 hours a week, you probably work every day, because you have to finish a project and not to fulfill your working hours. And yeah, it can be very exhausting. It costs you lots of private time and recovery time from work. And when it's getting serious about deadlines or keeping up a schedule for your projects and stuff, then you really have to put science communication down and focus on your science, because this is what you get paid for it. And yeah, and this is also a reason why I put down my activity a bit down this year, because I was writing my PhD thesis, and everyone who's asking me to help to get into science communication, I also warn this person, because it can be very time consuming, and at the end it can amplify all the problems you have besides or beside other problems you have during your PhD, but also in your as a postdoc if you're working on other science projects, because it costs a lot of time. And normally as a scientist you spend your free time on writing proposals and other stuff or discussing some topics with your colleagues, and this is also on top. So it can be very hard. On the other side, you can decide on your own how much you do or not do, and this is a very nice point about it.
This shows that you are really engaged with what you are doing, and I think that's one of the best practice examples which we always want to show with Artport. It's not only about doing nice projects around the ocean with kids and artists and scientists, but it's really also to inspire engagement, because this is actually what is lacking today in our very comfortable societies. People, they are engaged with their work maybe and with their family and maybe building a home and things like this. But the real social and environmental engagement is missing a little bit, even in the educated surrounding. And this is why I find that really, well, I think inspiring, but also a very good best practice example. Of course, Thomas as well, you are investing a lot of your free time to surroundings like this, to sensitize people and to engage with environmental or social change. And but do you feel that, of course, you had to reduce your activities this year a little bit, which is understandable, but did you feel that what you're doing is an accelerator for change? Do you see, can you feel, at least have an impression if something is moving in the heads or in the mindset of the people, the audience in front of you?
I think especially in my private environment, so around my family and my friends, all of them who see my presentations are much when they discuss about environmental and climate change and global warming, I have the feeling that they have more arguments coming from the scientific basis than before. And I think this is very good, because a scientific fact is always stronger than something like I don't believe in it, because you cannot prove this. This is very positive, but I never heard from somebody who changed his life completely, so I'm still waiting for this. But I can see that my activities that I reach more and more people with it. So at the beginning, I was giving my science slams in front of 100 people, and now then 500 people. And 2 weeks ago, I was in a podcast which reaches 50,000 people, like this. And yes, and then I also get a lot more of feedback. Also positive feedback, and yeah, people are quite impressed and so, but I never see, or I never heard about anything bigger.
But I think this is hard anyway. We cannot calculate the real impact, but sometimes we can at least have an impression that something is moving in the heads. And if somebody in your family already comes up with more scientific arguments and reasons, that's already a big change. Because this is what is actually lacking. We understand what is happening outside, but most of us, we don't really have the scientific language to explain to other people what is really happening. And most of the times we are also in defense. Maybe there is a question on behalf of the audience. Maybe somebody wants to sit here and ask Maria Elena about her work, or maybe like just an impression giving. Yes.
So much. I'm Caitlin Southwick from Key Culture, and first of all, would love to say congratulations. And I know climate communication is one of the, it's a huge issue right now, and it's something incredibly important. So I have a question, and it's kind of for everybody in this room. We have here a funder, we have here a doer, we have in this room a network of museums. How do we fund these types of projects and then get them out into our network of museums so that we can spread the word about climate in a broader and faster and more streamlined way?
That's a very good question. Maybe we have to ask Jeff Bezos. Any answers on behalf of my fellow panelists or the audience? I'm sure that there are many great ideas, even though they might be utopian, but I think we have to speak about that, because we are always walking on the beaten tracks. But maybe we really have to think out of the box. But maybe our funder, as you called him, has an idea.
I think, and the answer comes from a project we have also supported for quite a while, which is the project Meeresbürger here in Germany. But it is a wider network project called Citizens of the Ocean, and which is a network of science center museums that are dealing with the ocean. And over the course of the project, and that's not only here in Germany, but also in Europe and abroad, it was very clear that one of the major challenges there was that the institutions were not really thinking about putting these things into their core budget. So it was always welcomed as long as it was funded, but the moment the funding went away, those functions were cancelled again. So, and that is, in a way, it's quite depressing. On the other hand, it shows where need for lobbying and let's say there's an implementation gap, because if you ask the institutions, of course they want to do this. They just have to do it.
Something I'm really struggling about many times, because I think there is already a big awareness of that there's something wrong with the climate, and it has just different stages of how urgent is it really. And I see lots of small and big projects to spread the word about the urgency and global warming and so. But I think the biggest challenge is to put this into action. And I just don't see it. And as long as we vote, the same people we voted 20 years and all our lives, nothing will change. And we also have, or there is a big awareness that there is a problem, but the solutions I think we have to speak out more clearly what to do, what is necessary to reduce carbon emissions. And this is stop flying and cut down your lifestyle to 1 ton of carbon dioxide every year, which means that we live in tents and eat grass like this. Would be a sustainable lifestyle. And it's very hard to sell this to people. And so I just haven't found the solution how to push the people towards action, because even the climate change deniers know that there's something wrong, that there's a discussion about it. And we have the awareness, but we still don't do anything, or not enough, or we have the impression that it's not enough, but it's far too less.
I think that's the perfect moment to switch to Professor Dr. Christian Berg, even though you don't like it when I thank you very much. When I talk about titles, but I think it's part of your biography as well, and it should be talked about. So you are a sustainable thinker, speaker, and author. You are maybe one of the most prolific sustainability thinkers in Germany. You have extensive professional experience as sustainability lecturer and keynote speaker for corporate sustainability. And among others, you worked as chief sustainability architect at SAP. We saw that in the morning as well. SAP was a new Klima Arena initiative in Sinsheim. And you led, even though you have nothing to do with that, but I just combined two things, and led the task for sustainable economic activity and growth within German Chancellor Merkel's future dialogue. Your book, Sustainable Action, Overcoming the Barriers, I have it here in German. I think that was that the translation in English, or no, it's another book. That's the German version, because the translation is a little bit different. I can only recommend this book. It's amazing. It's like complex, very smart, but very understandable. And I think that's important in the sustainability context as well, that we, the normal citizen, understand what sustainability thinking is about. So it was accepted as the new report to the Club of Rome. Therein, you give a comprehensive account of barriers to sustainability and suggest action principles for sustainability action principles for sustainability which support actors in contributing to the realization of the SDGs. So very practical advice. You are a true transdisciplinary thinker. We talked about that earlier. Holding academic degrees in physics, philosophy, and theology. if you look at that, well, that's the response which you get very often. It sounds absurd in a way. And on top, mechanical engineering. You are a professor for sustainability, scholar, and renowned consultant to industry and governmental organizations. Oh, wow. Your biography is even longer than the one of Jens Amstorff. I'm sorry, but I will finish soon. You explain in vivid words why we need a polluter pays law, why we need to expand transparency to include existing investments for large and small stakeholders, and why we need more research and development for integrated reporting and sustainability metrics, and much more. So my question now, finally. In your book, Sustainable Action, you write, foster education is actually a measure rather than a principle, but is of such fundamental and general importance for the future development of humankind that I nevertheless include it here. Understanding, addressing, and overcoming the barriers to sustainability as much as the principles for sustainable action require sound education. Do you think that a project like We Are Ocean, which combines art, education, and science, can help to foster our education? Can art and education really play an important role in the transition to more sustainable thinking and acting? What do you think?
Yes, absolutely. And I have actually brought a picture with me, and I might show this. I hope you can see it from the back. So you would probably not blame the photographer for having made this a black and white photography. So this image, this picture, transfers much more information. It gives emotion. It evokes response. It celebrates simplicity. It pictures the image of a frugal life, maybe even if you want to point it or put it to the extreme. So you could write long essays and make a picture description, but you can simply just show it, and you evoke feelings. And we as humans have really lost connection. I mean, I would say we have lost connection certainly to nature. I mean, more than 50% of global population live in cities and don't have any immediate interaction with nature anymore. But even we, as a kind of aware and natural aware people, have very limited exposure to nature. So we have lost this connection, but I would go on and say we have also lost connection to ourselves. And as a theologian, I might add to the divine as well. So, and here it is very important, and art plays a key role to get both hemispheres of our brain into action, not just the left hemisphere, not just the right, but do this together. You know, then creativity emerges, and I would fully agree that scarcities drive innovation. This is one of the key phrases I teach my students. It is scarcities that drive innovation, and I'm quite confident that we will see great innovation coming in the next decades. But we need, as humanity, we need to realize that we are really in scarcity. I mean, scarcity not just natural resources, but scarcity of clean air, of carbon reduction. You know, this is a proxy for different kinds of scarcities. So I think art and culture, music, and different forms of human expression are so important because they connect us to our truly kind of holistic life as humans, get us connected to nature again, to other fellow creatures. That's one thing. And another thing is, which is also very important, art and they can be used, art can be used, but art must not just be used as an instrument. Art is something which is a goal in itself. And this is so important because culture is that which transcends this utilitarian logic. You know, we have such a proliferation of economic thinking that everything is monetized, everything is quantified, and everybody asks about impact. But we are kind of sometimes pretty stupid in assessing our impact. Who knows what footprint we will ultimately leave when we leave this planet, you know? That's, some people say it's not so much, or it's the impression we leave in other people's lives that count, actually, if we eventually die. So I think there are many things I could add, but I'd rather stop now and wait if you want to come up with the next question.
Yes, indeed. Maybe what you said before was already pointing out to that. In your book, you also speak about the idea of knowledge integration. I'm not sure if this is the right translation. In German, you say Wissensintegration. Can you explain that a little bit more, maybe also in the context of how to transfer scientific knowledge in a different language to society, or how the different sectors of our society have to merge somehow in order to make something more visible?
I think I would respond in two ways. On the one side, I call this fragmentation of knowledge. I mean, can you imagine that in Germany alone, we have more than 20,000 study programs? So according to a sociologist, Norbert Elias, you can see the degree of civilization of a society and the number of phrases for professions. And according to that, we would be ultimately civilized, you know, because we have more than 20,000 study programs. And we know more and more about less and less until we know everything about nothing. And the problems of today are unfortunately quite opposite. They are generalistic. But if you are in academia, if you are in business, if you are in government agencies, you are not really rewarded or compensated for general approaches. You know, the expert is what is asked for, and that's a trend where we need to change the system. The other thing is that we need to integrate also the emotional part, and this is what I meant with the left and the right hemisphere of our brain. There are many shocking misconceptions about the future, and also about the right measure to address problems. And one most shocking is the story of Alan Severoy, who studied desertification in the Sahel zone in Rhodesia in the 60s. And he first thought it was livestock that created desertification. And then after several years of studies, he concluded, no, it's not the livestock, it's the elephants. And then he actually convinced his government of Rhodesia at that time to shoot 40,000 elephants. Unfortunately, he was wrong, but he found out too late. And this is the kind of logic. And when I shared this story with a friend of mine, who is actually a creative thinker, a designer, she said, she was so angry and said, this is why they didn't listen to their heart. You know, if you had a comprehensive view on reality, you would have known this cannot be the solution. I mean, elephants were around for millions of years. They cannot be the problem. And this shows that we need to come to an integrated approach, not just be so arrogant and think that our solutions are the right ones, especially if we apply large-scale thinking, you know, in large scale, also we don't talk about geo-environmental engineering, but if we ever do, we need to be very, very cautious in applying measures, you know, because sometimes our arrogance and ignorance just makes it all even worse.
Yeah, thank you very much. I think this kind of statements, these kind of ideas and theories are really important. We talked about this, I heard that in the morning as well, and this is also my conviction. We have to always have a holistic approach. We always have to look at different angles, and if we want to change, that's what we are here for, to speak about sustainable development in museums, in the cultural context. We always have to look at many different angles. We have to have multi-perspectives. We cannot only look at one. And this is why, well, I can only speak of my engagement and what we do with Artport. This is why we moved away from being a mere art organization, which we were at the beginning, to something more hybrid, to really include other sectors in society, to speak about something in a more understandable and more serious way as well. And also to give arts a more serious background and not see only arts as, oh yeah, the arts, oh yeah, they can visualize something, oh, they can be like a nice instrument to transport knowledge, or yeah, they can give a little nice performance, or let's watch a video, because that's what is happening, and that was happening to us 15 years ago. They were not taking us seriously, that we wanted to combine art and climate change. And now we see what is happening 15 years later. But and I think it's for me, it's really important to not only read books and then proclaim something which I thought I understood, but to have the real experts on board who speak about the real things, like you speak about your science, like you speak about your sustainability research, like Julia is going to speak about her role as education curator later. But I want to open maybe quickly to the audience. Yes, Henry McKee, yes, please. Have a seat.
So, I mean, I've heard this, the comment you made before about how we live in a world where people know more and more about less and less. But the other end of that is how people know less and less about more and more, so they know nothing about everything. And so how we can think of, well, what is the middle ground where they know kind of enough about enough, and whether that could be education for sustainable development.
Brilliant question. Brilliant question. I've never thought about that, and I might need some more time. But these days, I think we have really a problem with all sorts of theories and fake news which are going around, and where I think we have really lost our trust in rational thinking. I mean, at least certain parts of society seem to have lost that. So we definitely need we need expertise. We need also specialties, we need experts, that's for sure. And I'm not I don't want to ridicule this endeavor. I mean, that's definitely needed. But the problem is that we have only incentives in that direction. And interestingly, also in government agencies, you have these departmental structure and very few laws. Actually, the German climate law is now one of the few exceptions which go really cross, because it sets standards for each and every ministry, you know. But that's very unpopular unless you're the Minister for Environment. For all other ministries, it's quite unpopular. I'm not sure, is that the right direction? How we address the fake news discussion, or?
What is the kind of body of knowledge and the quantity that we think that people need, that every citizen needs? And because we need to be sustainable as individuals as well, we just can't fill our heads with more and more information. So what is enough?
Yes, thank you. I mean, first of all, I'm really a fan of a general, for instance, in university programs, of a general introduction into, in Germany, we had the concept of Studium Generale, where you have a general introduction into all kinds of fields. Actually, the Association of Technical Engineers, Mechanical Engineers in Germany, 30 years ago recommended that 20% of this study program should be non-technical stuff. Unfortunately, I would say most students take then business administration, which is of course also non-technical, but not as comprehensive as I would wish, you know. At my university in Clausthal, Technical or University of Technology, we're now considering a program for reflection, for philosophy of science and ethics of science, because engineers and scientists are more and more confronted with the fact that they need to take a viewpoint in society. I mean, in Corona times, obviously, but also beyond that. What is the better alternative? Is it electric vehicle? Is it combustion engine with maybe with hydrogen? What is the alternative? You need to have a viewpoint here, and you cannot just say, "Well, I'm just a scientist. I don't care." Let politicians do that, because they are overwhelmed with the information and they cannot decide. So we need this kind of studium generale on the consumer level, I would say, and this is what if you allow, what I say in the book. On the one side, we need an analysis of the problems, which is really taking into consideration the complexity. So we should not oversimplify the complexity. It is not just personal behavior. It is our systems, our institutions, our politics, our market that needs to change. On the other side, as an individual, I need this reduction of complexity. I'm overwhelmed. I cannot just use between 30 different brands of yogurt. I just want, what I really like. And similar, if every act of consumption carries the burden of rescuing the world, then I'm lost. I will either get a cynic, or get frustrated, or get adapted to the circumstances and say, I cannot change anything. So in order to reduce this complexity, I suggest principles for sustainable action, which are actually not my invention, which are quite old. Most of them are quite old. Take the polluter pays principle. That's 4,000 years old, basically, but we simply don't take it serious, and we don't apply this to nature or to the cost in the market system, So these kind of principles need to guide each one of us as long as the institutions are not doing their job. And at the same time, we need to work on the institutional level and get the systems fixed. Ultimately, the system should guide us. This morning we saw here this ramp with a sustainable, what was it? Unsustainable structure and then sustainable behavior. I mean, that's a job of politics, get the systems fixed. And then the individual can have this room for maneuver, but currently we're not there yet. So in this phase in between, we have an extra mile to go.
Thank you very much. Thomas Brun has a question. Before we move to Julia, I just saw that we are quite late. I think my watch stopped working.
I was very much triggered by this point. I love the direction the conversation is going to now, because it triggers in me the question, what is it that actually needs to be communicated when we talk about science communication? What is the knowledge that is needed? And what I'm sitting with is there is more and more knowledge that's being shared, but so little opportunity to listen to those who might be in need. And that's, to me, a challenge for all sorts of institutions. I don't know how much it applies to museums or science centers, but also the way how we at our institute interact with policymakers. I need to listen to the context of my peer, whoever he or she may be, before I can have a sense what of the lots of knowledge that might be somehow related is really relevant here. And how do we do that? That's a highly personalized thing. You spoke about the relevance of also emotional as a connotation of the knowledge and the what we are talking about. This is something that has to do with the human being we are interacting with. And it's not only about the knowledge. And we are consuming and processing so much knowledge that is totally disconnected to our own efficacy. Like, take any information about Donald Trump, for example, that we can read lots of every day if we like, but it has totally nothing to do with my personal life, apart from it may sensitize me where I work with narcissists, and I don't know it, maybe. Yeah? But, I'm wondering, is it about getting the word across, or is it about listening carefully to know what are the right words needed here and what is the right language needed for certain people we relate with.
Or the right measures to take. You have to listen to an employee in a museum who tells you, I would like to do something, but I'm completely blocked. I cannot do nothing because either I don't have money or I'm not allowed to do this. I'm not allowed to use my, I don't know, my mug from home here because of hygiene reasons. I'm just making like one small example, but I think that's also the way. And then you make a list and you understand what kind of challenges they have at their workplace, and then you can work on the solutions.
I prefer the word responses, actually, but of course, I mean the same like you. How do I support people to respond in their context adequately? And basically, I want to make this a point about advocating for listening structures in science communication.
I have a question from...
Yes, please, one final comment.
I'm absolutely with you. I think listening is so important, and therefore let me just stress this again. And I think one thing which is pretty close to that is social cohesion. And I think that's why it's so important that we have local activities like sports clubs, like associations, like choirs, church groups, whatever, where people come together across different milieus, different sectors of society, and just live together in a way. And then they understand, they see the world also in the kind of perspective from somebody else. That's absolutely important.
Thank you very much. Final comment.
One final. Social cohesion. How can it be that we are in the same city for 4 years and we're not? No, but listening, yes, of course. The main point is that needs time. And that is normally the time that you don't have. Where people think, no, I don't do this because nobody pays me, or this is taking too much of my time. And we spoke earlier, this is the most relaxed year of my last 20 years because I'm not traveling. Why am I traveling to our project partners? Because I'm not checking the books there. We're sitting together and we're talking so that I understand what their need is and they understand what my need is. But that takes time. Email, Skype, Zoom, whatever, fine. But at some point you need the direct interaction with another human being, and time for that.
Yes, and maybe we all have to reduce all our activities a little bit. Maybe everything becomes more effective and efficient then. Is it me? Sorry. So finally, I will get to my fellow Dr. Julia Moritz. I want to point out her doctor title because we always forget it. She never mentions it. Nobody knows that she worked hard on her doctor title. But yes, so I'm today mentioning this. So you are an art historian and curator with a focus on experimental public programming and education. And you are currently working as education curator at the Gropiusbau in Berlin. You worked as curator of theory and programs at the Kunsthalle Zürich. You headed the maybe education and public programs of Documenta 13, which is really important. In Kassel in 2012, no, it was one of maybe the best Documenta ever. Previously, okay, this was a personal comment, sorry. Previously, you taught contemporary art history at the University of Lüneburg, very close by, and where you organized exhibitions and event programs for the university's art space Kunstraum. In addition, you have worked on major exhibitions such as Manifesta 7 in Trentino, Alto Adige in 2008, the German Pavilion at the 52nd Biennale Arte di Venezia in 2007. That was already 13 years ago. You were still a baby. And have independently curated several smaller scale projects such as the Young Girl Reading Group Show with, well, you don't know the names, it was in 2016. You co-curated We Are Ocean in Berlin, very important project, and Brandenburg, as well as the We Are Ocean curated film program, which we couldn't show today. It's a whole series of 8 artistic films, but we are going to watch one very short one afterwards. And so you know the project from within. You helped me to establish things, and you accompanied the workshops as well. And you have been working in many previous projects, bringing together art and education. tell us a bit more about your personal experience with We Are Ocean and whether you think that art can help to transform the mindset of people towards a more ecological and respectful thinking. And did you see specific outcomes? I want to really which were immediately visible. That's a very difficult question, and we usually answer it with no, but maybe you have seen something.
Last question asked a lot as a public programs and educations creator. People are, of course, always after the smiley faces, and we've seen them, and they're there, but usually I refuse the question because it's something that I'd like to talk about. Use this moment to also talk about the distinction that I believe is very important to make when we're talking sustainability and art, that of course, there's art as individual creative expression, but then, of course, you're talking to me, I'm like an example of art as a system with its own educational institutions, habitus is manifold, the artist, as we know him, and actually an industry as well, like a market, institutions, policies, it's a whole, and we sometimes forget this, like we're talking art, particularly in like interdisciplinary programs as such, like there's always a focus on the actual creative act, but art, capital A, with its history, tradition, and temples and towers is also a system that's very much in need of facing the question of sustainability. And unfortunately, so this is a system where I belong to that's quite behind its own creative production. So we've seen, at least in the last 2 decades, most prolifically since the 1990s, most significantly, artistic research, the way that artists approach science and other fields of knowledge, or on any aesthetic medium, amazing and really, as Christian Becker said, like really generating affect and empathy, like outcomes that definitely, and here's the yes to your second question, engender change and would certainly contribute to a different mindset or a broader capacity to imagination as such. But then again, look at the museums. We are still applying the Gropius Bau. Is not even a museum. We don't even have a collection. We're like an exhibition hall, as it were, like an Ausstellungshaus with contemporary art. And we still have to comply to conservation standards that require 16 degrees Celsius in our rooms, which you can imagine makes 2/3 of our energy consumption to guarantee that climate all the time. And that is, of course, rightfully so if you're showing a Rembrandt or whatever. But most of the contemporary artwork is recreated after it's shown. It's not so much, I mean, it's conceptual work mainly that doesn't hang on to its material basis so much as it would require its complete preservation with the 16 degrees Celsius temperature. But this, for example, has only been questioned this year in our building. After so much energy has been spent on this, and this doesn't mean that it's changing, it's been questioned this year. So here I'm reporting a little bit from a rift that I'm seeing between the actual intellectual, artistic, aesthetic, vanguardism, as it were, the avant-garde in ecological thinking, and my system, really. And that's what, of course, motivated me to join you in your, what I will have to say, like, I thought it was a little bit of a crazy idea. In Berlin, We Are the Ocean. I mean, you've seen, like, and it's of course also a significant fact, like how much alienation, as you've stressed, we're facing when it comes to the ocean in the landlocked metropolises, particularly. I mean, some of the kids have never been. And it's not that they don't have any other things on their mind. Like, it's really not a topic that when you came and said, I want to make an ocean project in Berlin, I'm like, okay, this is crazy enough, I want to do this. And so, yeah, we've, of course, like, it was a fantastic experience to have shaped the vision. You've seen the funding school, there's nothing I can add to this images and words. And yeah, back to the question that I'm refusing to answer, if there are any immediate visible outcomes, is that this is the question that my institution asks me all the time. And this is why I think we need definitely higher space and more resources, and not starving the artists to death, because this is a labor that needs to be paid. Also, this type of creative thinking that will actually push and drive the institutions to allow for more space of experimentation on structural levels, and not only celebrate them on the aesthetic level.
Yeah, include less artists, but pay them all. Instead of doing an exhibition with 86 artists, do one with 5 artists and pay them properly. This is my humble contribution. Thank you very much. That was very insightful, and I think important as well to talk about that. If you look, thank you to the technician to put those images on, because I think this is metaphorical. Those 3 girls, well, together with other girls, they said during the workshop, it's not that this idea came from the artist. Oh, we want to do the choral dance. What is the choral dance? So they were playing the chorals, which were suffocating by plastic at the end. It was the idea of the kids. And this, for me, is already an outcome. They are kids living in the city center of Berlin. Well, for me, it's the city center. For maybe people living in Berlin, Tempelhof is not. But they didn't know what to talk about when we talked about the ocean. Then they came up with this idea, and then throwing around the plastic, and then the artist put on the blue screen in the back, she projected images so that we can see real corals. And I think to identify yourself with the coral in Berlin and suffocating or dying from plastic litter is for me like astonishing, and it was really like opening my heart. So I would like to, because we are running late, and I'm sorry I didn't look on my phone, I looked on my old watch, and the old watch stopped running. I would like to transition now to our last part, which is a little meditation. So some of you are still here. I'm really happy about that, and you didn't fall asleep yet. That's very comforting. But now you can breathe a little bit, and we are going to show you a video. I'm going to introduce the video briefly. Susanne M. Winterling, she's a German artist. The video is called Glistening Troubles. It's actually an excerpt of Glistening Troubles of only 1 minute, so that's good, 1 minute. It deals with bioluminescent touch-lit dinoflagellates, I'm not sure if I pronounce it well in English, as indicators of the state of health of potentially toxic coastal waters. The work resulted from Winterling's residency at the TBA 21 Alligator Head Foundation in Jamaica. In a video interview in the full version of the work, a fisherman from Rock provides insight into the medicinal properties of algae in the treatment of skin infections, a practice that has been known locally for centuries. The project puts the skin through which we touch the world around us and luminous displays our intersections with digital reality in metaphorical proximity. It deals with the interlocking of information in overlapping analog and virtual worlds, as well as with the solidarity between the species, referring to our lively interdependence with other bodies. A nice text and a beautiful idea. So I was speaking about this earlier. Susanne, I think she is like diving somewhere right now. I didn't get her response until this morning that we are allowed to show the video here today. And she is really an artist who works at the intersection of art and science. She does her research, and well, this short video speaks about those dinoflagellates. So enjoy it, breathe, disconnect from everything we were talking, and then we see each other in a minute. Film up. If it's working. Yes. Yes. Thank you. I hope you feel reactivated now. 1 minute of meditation sometimes helps. I totally forgot at the beginning to say thank you to the Klimahaus, to Philipp Wädchen for the invitation and for the organization. I think you did a really good job in these challenging times, and we are all happy that it happened at the end. I just want to make 2 statements, like at the end. We are going to be finished in 1 or 2 minutes. I hope this is okay for you. So first of all, one of the final goals of the project is also to to make an offer to the German government to include this kind of external art, scientific or interdisciplinary projects at schools. Politically and funding-wise, it's difficult. It's difficult for schools. They cannot provide these kind of projects. The teachers, they cannot learn more material or more knowledge on top of what they are already doing. And these kind of external projects help them and the kids to really develop in a specific way. And the artists and the scientists who come on board of this, they love that, the kids love that. So we think that it's important to push the curriculum or the political institutions to include these kind of projects in the usual school curriculum. So we are planning, and it's a long process, it's complicated, and we need the support of all of you, of the audience and of our visitors and participants. We invite you all to come on board of an official petition to the German Bundestag regarding the integration of external interdisciplinary art science projects in the context of sustainable development into the curriculum of German schools. A call for action, so to say. We will keep you posted about this on our website, and if you would like to, you can leave your contact details here or subscribe for our newsletter on our website. And the other announcement is that together with the Green Art Lab Alliance, we created among the Green Art Lab Alliance one group which is called Green Art Gala Ocean, River, Water. And we want to start the COP26, which was originally planned for November this year in Glasgow. We want to actually make it happen, but in our ways, or in our way. And we planned a year-long poetic march for COP26 to the ocean, river, and water. So everybody can participate with your own walks, long or short, regular or only once, here or far. The details will be published also soon through several channels, among others on our website. And there we are going to explain it a little bit more. So it's going to be one march consisting of many marches worldwide, which can be a march of 5 minutes or of 5 days, always walking towards a water, which can be the sea, the ocean, a river, a lake, whatsoever, and it includes recording. But the technical details, we will publish them soon. And yeah, we would love you to be on board, to like us on Instagram, because on Instagram it's easy for us to promote those kind of new ideas. So I thank you very much for your attendance, for being here, for asking questions, for not falling asleep, and hope that we are going to be in touch in the future. Thank you to my panelists. Very happy that you were here, and I learned very much, and I hope that we are going to put the content of this panel together in a written way, which we love very much as well. Thank you very much. Have a nice evening, and maybe see you later. Bye-bye.